What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Halo Effect podcast. This episode will be talking about the book by David Dita, The Way of the Superior Man. If this is a book that you've never heard of before and you are a guy, you definitely got to pick this book up. There's a ton of valuable information on how to navigate relationships between the opposite sex, men and women, masculine and feminine energy, and a bunch of other stuff. And so I've read this book twice in the audio format, and I read it once in a physical format. But it's a book that I came across that was recommended by Nipsey Hussle. I was actually watching an interview of his, a couple years back, and he was on a radio show, and he was talking about the book. And so I was always open minded for a couple years now when it comes to books. And whenever somebody mentions a book, especially somebody the caliber of who Nipsey was, I looked into it, and it was a great book. It's been a great book. It's been a great read so far. I've gotten a lot of valuable information from it. And so today I'd like to go over a brief synopsis of it. And honestly, I've been having conversations with people about this book. It's been popping up in conversations a lot lately, especially with women. I actually recommend this book to women for women to read, and also my male friends. And I was talking with my assistant, and I feel like part of what I want to do with this podcast is talk about healthy masculinity, what that looks like, and what I believe that looks like, and what that is. I come from, I'm a Mexican guy. I'm a Mexican male. I come from my father's Mexican, and so we know about machismo. We know about pride. We know about all that good stuff, being tough, and I still believe in some of those things. Don't get me wrong. I do believe some of those things can inhibit the growth of a person, can inhibit relationships, can come across as, that popular word that everybody uses these days, which is toxic. I do believe that, that way of being can be toxic in relationships and life in general. However, there are things that I do believe in, when it comes to masculinity, that are old school, that in this day and age, like, people are demeaning, people are just talking bad about, essentially. And I hope that in this episode I could share my 2 cents as far as how I feel about masculinity, what I think masculinity is. And I think the synopsis of this book is going to help with that, and also serve as a great book recommendation, especially to all the guys out there that want to take themselves to the next level, want to become top business owners, top CEOs, top fathers, top coaches, whatever it is. And that's the type of audience that I want to listen to my podcast. People that want to be the best men that they can be, that want to dominate their lives, their work, relationships, and not dominate in the sense of controlling. I think that, especially in this day and age, I have to be very mindful as far as what words I use, which kind of sucks, but I also just use them. But in this sense, um, bring clarity and be responsible over my words as far as what I mean by dominate. I don't mean dominate in the sense of controlling, which is probably what some people may, think when they hear the word dominate. I mean dominate as far as being the best, being the absolute best that you can be in a particular field, whether that's work, whether that's family, whether that's sports, whatever it is that you do. I believe in being the best at whatever it is that I do. And I've been this way since I was a kid. I want to be the absolute best at. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that not wanting to be the best at what you do is the problem. Especially me with being in real estate. This is a field that is very competitive. It is a field that people expect a lot from you in this field. And there's some people that don't take this field too seriously, and it hurts the industry as a whole. And so I believe that if I'm not the best at what I do, I'm doing myself a disservice, I'm doing my clients a disservice, I'm doing the industry a disservice, and I don't want to be that person. And so I just like to focus on being the absolute best that I can do, whatever it is that I do. And that's what I mean by dominate. And that gives me confidence, that gives me motivation, and it inspires me. It gives me something to, work towards. And that's something that I appreciate, and that's something that I need in my life. All right, so we'll get straight into the book here, The Way of the Superior Man. So, quick synopsis of this book. One of the most important things that this book talks about is the differences between masculine and feminine energies, which I believe to be true. And I think there's no doubt that there's two different types of energies, right, in this world. When it comes to this, masculine and feminine, I was having a conversation over the weekend with someone, and you know, this particular person was talking about how she does not like the fact that in this day and age, people identify with one or the other and are too fixated on the fact that, oh, I'm too this, I'm too that. And what she was saying is, whatever it is that you are, just be that. Don't worry about if you're coming across a certain way. Just be who you are, essentially. There's nothing wrong with, you being a feminine man or you being a masculine woman. And I see where she was coming from. I do think, however, that biologically men are meant to provide, and even energetically men are meant to provide and penetrate, right? That's why we have certain biological, body parts to us. And feminine are meant to nurture, and feminine are meant to receive, you know. And I look at things that way, right? There's just no way around it. It's biological. Men create testosterone, women create estrogen. There's no way around that, you know? And I by no means would dismiss a man that is feminine or a woman that is masculine. I feel like we see that all the time. However, I do think that if we stick to the traditional, roles as far as energies and gender roles, there is a lot of fruitful things that can come out of that, such as, healthy families, healthy kids. Not saying that if you don't have a traditional relationship between a man and a woman who are both equally balanced in their energies, that you can't have families that are happy and children that get raised and are, healthy and fully functioning people. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I do believe that in the traditional sense, with men and women coming together and two partners coming together that are equally balanced in their energies, especially, a man being masculine and a feminine being feminine as their dominant energies, I do feel like that you create people and kids and families and environments that are more well-rounded, simply because those energies are coming together and they're becoming one. And so Dita delves into the idea that every individual possesses both masculine and feminine energies, regardless of gender. The author also emphasizes that the importance of embracing and balancing these energies within oneself is highly important, which I do agree with. Purpose and freedom. The book discusses the significance of living with purpose and direction. As a man, Dita suggests that men should prioritize their mission or purpose in life above all else, while also maintaining a sense of freedom and spontaneity. So this goes back to the masculine energy, the masculine drive to want to have purpose and freedom in what they do. Me as a man, I'm very focused, I'm very driven, I'm very, on task, on point. That is how I feel at my best. That's how I feel most focused. That's how I feel most connected with myself, with my environment, with life in general. It's just having a sense of purpose and a sense of direction. In this book, David Dita talks about how the opposite of that, the feminine energy, at its core, is not like that. He references feminine energy sometimes as being like the ocean, having waves of emotion back and forth. And it's very typical. Like if you're a dude and you've been in a relationship before, or even if you grew up around women like I did, you know and understand that women can be very emotional at their core. Now, sometimes what happens with women is that, from what I've seen, is that if they have bad experiences with their father, or if they have bad experiences with men, they tend to shut that energy off and put on more of a masculine energy to be able to protect themselves and get what they want and not be hurt again. And this is something that happens often, that I see often. And so I do think that as a man, it is very important for us to provide. It is very important for us to have a sense of direction so that women around us feel safe. And that provides a level of financial security, physical security, mental and emotional security as well. Authenticity and presence. The author emphasizes the importance of authenticity and being present in every moment. He suggests that men should learn to express themselves honestly and openly without fear and judgment or rejection, without fear of judgment or rejection. And this is a very important topic. I was just having a conversation with somebody else this weekend, and we were talking about vulnerability. And it's funny because I just saw Jay Shetty, who has a very powerful podcast. Um, it's called On Purpose, and he talks a lot about mental health and things that we need to talk about as people, right? And so he just had Michael B. Jordan on the podcast, and they were talking about, or Michael B. Jordan was talking about the fact that vulnerability is a strength. Vulnerability is not weakness. And that's kind of what this is alluding to, what David Deida is alluding to in The Way of the Superior Man. Oftentimes what I have found is that women crave that vulnerability from men. Sometimes as men, I feel like we shy away from that because, we think that if we are vulnerable, we are weak. We don't want people to really see us how we truly feel, how we truly are, how we truly think. And so we don't express ourselves. We don't share our vulnerabilities. And sometimes too, I think there's a misconception where men think that, or maybe people think that, in order for you to be vulnerable, you have to cry or you have to look a certain way. And that's not the case. Vulnerability simply is stating where you are at internally, stating what you think, sharing that with people. And that in turn opens up, a two-way conversation. It builds trust. It allows people to see you for where you are at the moment. Now, it doesn't mean that you are that as a person, that you are that as a man. Sometimes we go through certain stages and seasons in our lives, and that's all right. That's completely normal. We have emotions too, and it's important to sit within those emotions, acknowledge those emotions, express those emotions, because when we do those things, then we start healing from those emotions, and those emotions and experiences and thoughts start healing us, and they start taking us to the next level. It has been in moments when I have shared what I was feeling, what I was thinking, that breakthroughs came. When there was moments where I didn't know what direction I was going to go, I didn't know if I was thinking or feeling the right things. Once I expressed those things, I was able to get clarity. I was able to get revelation. I was able to get direction as far as what I needed to do with my life. And so, what I really want to express in this episode is the fact that, if you are a man, being vulnerable is one of the strongest things that you can do, because being vulnerable, when you are vulnerable, you're putting everything on the table. When you are vulnerable, you are essentially telling people, like, this is it, like, these are my cards, this is who I am, this is where I am, and there is nothing that you can do, there is nothing that you can say, there is no judgment that is going to shake me, that is going to break me, because at the end of the day, I know who I am. And that's how I see vulnerability. And how I also see vulnerability is my strength being practiced, my strength being shown, so that other people can draw courage from that strength. Because when you are vulnerable, people draw strength and confidence from that. When you put yourself out there, it inspires other people to do the same. And so all the while, you are being purposeful, you are being driven, you have direction. David Deida talks about maintaining freedom and spontaneity to be able to kind of balance that a little bit, because that is important. It's okay to have fun with life. It's okay to be spontaneous. It's okay to be free within yourself and do things that make you happy. All right, point number 4, David Dita explores the dynamics of sexual energy and attraction between masculine and feminine partners. He suggests that maintaining sexual polarity is crucial for sustaining passion and intimacy in relationships. Sexual polarity is very important from what I've gathered here and my personal experience as well. You have to be attracted to who you are with based on their energy and based on your energy. It's very important to come across with the right energy so that you have the right sexual relationships and the right partners. I think that I think that obviously sex is a part of our life. It's a basic necessity that we all need. Some people are going to disagree. I grew up in religious circles that preach, wait until marriage to have sex, to each their own. So I do believe that sex is a spiritual experience. I feel like, we all need sex. We're grown, right? There's things that happen, hormones, and, that act within itself, I feel like brings a lot of freedom, a lot of just, creativity. It reduces stress. Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of, benefits that and facts that I don't necessarily know about. All I know is that it's good. And so, you know, I like how the book talks about sexual polarity. Point number 5 is challenges and growth. The book encourages men to embrace challenges and difficulties as opportunities for growth. Dita emphasizes the importance of facing fears and stepping out of one's comfort zone to reach one's full potential. And this is something that I've talked about and touched upon in the podcast as well, is just the importance of stepping outside of your comfort zone, the importance of doing something that you've never done before. I'm actually facing this myself right now. I've hired my first assistant, and I think I made a podcast episode about this as well a couple episodes back, but I hired my first assistant. We've met a couple times already. This is the second month we're working together. And sometimes I find myself, especially when we're meeting, in situations where everything seems new to me, and I'm aware that this situation is stretching me, and it's asking and requiring a brand new me, a brand new person, a brand new man, a stronger man, a better leader, for me to be able to have this relationship with my assistant and we get to the same goal. And sometimes it feels uncomfortable because I'm used to working on my own. I'm used to controlling things and having things a certain way. And, obviously to be able to work with somebody, you have to release control. You have to release what you're used to and embrace new thoughts and new ideas and, manage the relationship. And so the important piece for me is that I was able to be aware of the fact that was uncomfortable, but I'm also in the middle of it. I'm also embracing that discomfort and I'm digging into it and I'm asking, like, how can I be better from this situation? How can I be a better leader? How can I be a better man? What types of questions do I need to be asking? What do I need to be saying? You know, and everything starts with awareness. Everything starts with you asking questions as far as, what do I need to do to be better? That is how my brain naturally operates. Actually, that is not how my brain naturally operates. That is one of the things and skill sets that I've been able to grow as I've, grown as a person, is understanding that the quality of my life is only going to improve as the quality of my questions improve. And to be able to grow within yourself or even grow relationships with others, you have to be extremely good at asking quality questions. Point number 6, relationships and love. David Dita offers insights into cultivating healthy and fulfilling relationships. He emphasizes the importance of communication, vulnerability, and mutual respect in intimate partnerships. Again, kind of goes back to relationships and love and having good communication, being vulnerable, having mutual respect with other people. And respect is something that is very important to us men. Women want to be loved. We want to be respected. That's how I feel. I want to be respected, and respect is the ultimate, I think, way to operate as a man, especially with other men, with people in the world. And so this book essentially offers a guide for men to embrace their masculinity, deepen their relationships and live with purpose and authenticity in every aspect of their lives. And so I think that that's a very important point there at the end, is embracing who we are as men, embracing our masculinity. I think a lot of what happens is these days masculinity gets shunned. Masculinity is kind of like the black sheep of conversations. And there is nothing wrong, I believe, with masculinity, healthy masculinity, and being a man. And I think that unfortunately what is happening in society right now is that masculinity is being, what's the right word? Masculinity is being like watered down. Masculinity is being attacked. And that is causing people to maybe feel confused. That is causing people to, you know, just feel defensive, and maybe men not being all that they can be or all that they were created to be. And what I would say is just embrace it. Ways that I've embraced my masculinity are, for me, I love combat sports. I love combat sports, and that by no means makes me a violent person. That by no means makes me someone who's angry. That is how I channel my energy. That is how I take maybe some anger and release it. That is how my makeup and just genetics operate. And the insight that that has given me is that, and I believe in genetics and your ancestors, being a certain way. There's more to you than what appears on the surface in this day and age. You are ages and years and history of just DNA and people and things that have happened in the past. And so for me, I just have that in me, where I feel like I've been a warrior, like in a past life, or my ancestors have been into, battles or combat. And that's just, that it makes me feel good. It makes me feel free. It makes me feel alive. I love combat sports. I can't explain it. But I think that along the same lines, when, say we have a kid, because we have kids, we have young boys in school that maybe like to fight or maybe like to be active and are a little rough. We shun those kids. We shun those kids and we think that there's something wrong with them, when maybe there isn't anything wrong with them, and that's what they like to do. That's how they express themselves. So why not create an environment that is healthy for them to do that in? Like, why not introduce boxing into the school system? Why not introduce martial arts into the school system, which I think would be super beneficial? There's a certain level of confidence that you get as a man when you know that you can hold your own, that you can fight, that you could punch, take a punch, that you know how to protect yourself. And that is an extra layer and level of protection that you will provide to the feminine in your life. And when that happens, the feminine in your life is going to feel a lot more secure. So my point is, like, we all have, a DNA. We all have gifts. We all have things that we like to do that come natural to us. The other example that I could think of is I like to pay attention to kids that are drawn to certain things. For example, if I see a kid that likes to bang on things, what that tells me is that they like percussion, they like beat, they like tempo, they may be a perfect like drummer or something, right? And so I try to, especially with people, I try to see like, how can we cultivate our gifts? How can we put ourselves in positions to embrace who we are? And that just goes back to embracing your masculinity. Do the things that make you feel good, make you feel free. Some guys like guns, some guys like hunting, fishing, sports, all this stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is okay. Some people may look at, for example, the hunting example and say, well, animals and this and the environment and that. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm not gonna sit here and debate about that. And I think that those types of conversations work better with other people in the room as well. So I'll just leave that conversation for another day. But for me, where I am in my life is, fully embrace who you are as a person, because when you do that, you shed your light, you share your light, and that ultimately allows other people to feel confident. It gives other people the courage to be the same. And I feel like if we live in a world where more people are sharing their light, more people are being who they are at their core as people, it's going to be a better world. All too often, what happens is that we put masks on. We are a certain version of ourselves that we're really not. And at the end of the day, that doesn't make the world a better place. And so, wherever you are as a man in your masculine journey, continue to walk that, continue to ask questions, continue to embrace who you are and develop and grow. And if you know and feel that you are not in the position that you want to be as a man, that there's so much more for you, then lean into that and then do what feels right and seek and search and ask questions and surround yourself around better men as well. And that's going to make you a better man. I recently joined a men's group. We meet every Thursday night, and I've met with them once, and I could see how that's going to enhance my life and make my life better. And so, who you surround yourself with is probably the most important thing that you can do as a man. Your circle is really what's going to make you better. Your network is your net worth, going back to all these sayings, but all these cliches, but they are true. So surround yourself around powerful men, and you yourself are going to be a powerful man as well. And another piece that I wanted to talk about when it comes to this book, very interesting take on this topic. What the author talks about, he essentially encourages men, especially if you are a guy who always sought the validation of your father. I think it's very natural for us as boys, as men, to try to, please our father and want to get the approval of our father. Sometimes our fathers are not capable to do that for us. They're not mentally, emotionally capable. Maybe they're not physically capable to do that for us. But very important take on this book. David Dita essentially encourages men in this position to act as if your father has passed away. Now, very interesting take indeed. A lot of people may not agree with it. Um, I, however, do. I think it's a very powerful way to approach life. Once you lose that necessity to feel validated from your father, it opens you up and it frees you up to just be more and do more, and do the things that you like to do without any expectation or waiting for validation from your father. Now, don't get me wrong, I had a rocky kind of relationship with my father growing up. There was ways that I needed him that I feel like I didn't have him, and I honestly grew up just on my own for a large part of my life. I had my father, I felt like physically in the home, but I didn't have him sometimes mentally or emotionally. I taught myself how to do a lot of things by myself. And there was moments and times where I was resentful towards my father. However, one of the most important skills that I learned growing up is empathy. And the reason why I learned that is because, in moments and situations where I felt like I needed something from my father that I wasn't getting, I'd get angry, I'd get upset, I'd be bitter, I'd be resentful. But for some reason, I would always try to put myself in his shoes and situation. And that in itself showed me how hard his life was. That in itself showed me why he wasn't able to give to me what I needed. And so I've taken that tip from the book. My father is still alive, and I do as much as I can to show my father that I love him and I appreciate him. However, I also understand that I have to keep walking my life and I have to keep living my life and my path. My path is not my father's path. And I think that sometimes the mistake that we make as men is that we think that we have to walk in our father's path to get his validation, to get his approval, especially if we've never had it. And so it's important for us to know and understand that our path is our path, our life is our life, and we have to live it that way. And if your father is still alive, I highly encourage you to mend whatever relationship you have with him, because when you mend the relationship with your father, you'll be mending the relationship between you and him, and also him and his father. And it's going to be a whole just generational healing when it comes to the masculine energy. And I think part of where toxic masculinity comes from is that, right? Is toxic relationships between father, son, for generations, especially in days and ages where, communicating wasn't necessarily encouraged as much as it is now. However, the balance for me in that is it's cool to communicate, but I also like the mindset of the guys back in the day, right? Back in the day, guys got to work. Back in the day, they took care of business. Back in the day, they went to work, they came back, they provided for the family. And I like that concept. So, what I want to do with people that are following me, or who I am as a person, is mend those two together, have those two worlds come together, the old school man and the new school man, with communication and vulnerability, and meshing those two together. And I think that if you're able to do that as a man in this day and age, be in tune with your mind but also your heart, you become a very powerful man. So with that being said, thank you for hopping on to another episode of the Halo Effect podcast. I hope this episode was helpful to you. If it was helpful, make sure you share this episode with another man in your life who you think that would benefit from this episode. Remember, it's all about making each other better and stronger as men so that we can be better leaders and create better communities. That being said, thank you for hopping on. And don't forget to follow me on all social media platforms, Ruben Halo on IG, Facebook, and TikTok. Make sure to follow me on Spotify as well. And I'll see you guys on the next episode.